webinar. Um, Welcome to the 2 o'clock webinar. We are online. We're going to wait for a few seconds to get some folks registered. So give us a second as we get folks to come online. We have some folks still logging in. So we'll wait here just another minute. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I am Kevin Terry, the School Counseling Director at Rockridge High School. And today we wanted to talk about information for junior parents to know now. We felt there was some information and some changes that have occurred in the last month or two that we wanted junior parents to know kind of right away. And this was our best avenue to get information out to folks right away. We do want to remind folks that Wednesday night we have a financial aid seminar with Briarwoods at 7 o'clock. We'll be talking a little bit about financial aid and the FAFSA in a few minutes, but we just want to get that reminder out right now. So today, let's talk about the logistics real quick. If you're watching on YouTube, you can send questions via email to susiealder@lcps.org. So that's for you folks on YouTube. If you're in Google Hangouts, it's probably easier if you use the chat function. We're having some issues with the Q&A. So you can probably send information or questions through the chat. Anyway, questions on YouTube or just questions in general, if you have, you can send to susie.alder@lcps.org. As you watch, we'll stop a few times to take questions, but we'll move on. So kind of our objectives for today are talk about who's going to be with your child on the journey to applying to college, and then the information that we really want to get out and the information about the changes in the SAT, the Common App changes, and the new Coalition for Access, Affordability, and Success, and talking about financial aid or the FAFSA. We're also going to talk about Naviance and how to use that, the tool that we use with our students, our seniors this year are using, and just in general about steps you and your student can take to prepare for college. So we wanted to introduce or make you aware of our counselors this year. Since Ms. Bush, her husband was reassigned to overseas, we had to redistribute students across all 4 counselors. And we just had to change the alphabet a little bit for 9th through 11th graders. So Ms. Qatar has all the 9th through 11th graders A through EN. Ms. Famalan has all the 9th through 11th graders from EO to KRI. And Ms. Bryan has the students from PP to Z, and Ms. Connell has KRJ to PO. And believe it or not, our alphabet's that specific that we have a KRJ and a KRI. So one of the first changes that we wanted to make folks aware about is the new PSAT coming in March. Everyone's kind of heard about these changes, but one of the things that we wanted to make you aware of is that the last day to take the old PSAT is January 23rd. And the registration deadline is just a few days away, which is December 28th is the registration deadline. March 5th is the new SAT, so the March, May, and June SATs will be the new SATs. And so why is that important to these groups, or the juniors, soon to be seniors? Ms. Alder asked pretty much every college in Virginia about will they accept the new SAT or the old SAT? Will they do something called super scoring? A super score is where a college takes the highest, say, math score of a sitting and the highest verbal score of a sitting, and they combine them. So you might have taken the May SAT and the December SAT, and they take the highest math from that sitting and the highest math from another sitting to get you your highest score, called a super score. So what Ms. Alder asked the colleges was, will you accept the old SAT for these current juniors, and will you super score? And so some colleges said, yes, we'll accept the old or the new SAT, but we will only super score the old SAT, or we'll only super score the new SAT. So it's important as you move forward in your college process to really research this, know what colleges will take the old SAT and the new SAT, and which ones they'll super score, because some were saying that they would super score old and new scores. The one that we were really concerned about, because we have a lot of students apply here, is Virginia Tech, who said they only want to see the new SAT for the current juniors. So that's a pretty big school, and we wanted parents to kind of know that now as you plan. It's very important that, again, you look and see with these colleges who's taking the new SAT and the old SAT. I know some of our juniors currently feel like they're done with the SAT, and this last January SAT was going to be kind of their last attempt to get their best scores. And a school like Virginia Tech saying we only want the new SATs, starting the clock for these students again. So we just want to make folks aware that that's out there, and that's a question that is coming up more and more. So definitely research it. For example, Virginia Tech has had it on their website for the last month or so. Other schools, as you saw Ms. Alder ask them specifically, are putting that information up. So a number of our juniors have said with the changes in the SAT, they are just going to stick with the ACT. And since most schools accept either an SAT or ACT, it's important that you just know the deadlines. The next ACT is coming up in February, so the deadline is January 8th for registration. And that June ACT isn't a bad time this year, let's say as bad as it was for others, because we're not having final exams this year. So it's past AP time, and students will be winding down with their projects. So that June 11th might not be a bad idea for the ACT. So the comfort level with the ACT and all the changes with the SAT, more folks just kind of felt like, I'm just going to take the ACT till we see what happens with the SAT. One of the challenges, and I'll go back a few slides here, is with the SAT in March, the deadline or the return for test scores could be up to 10 weeks. So students may take that SAT and may not know how well they did until they get those scores, but that may not be enough time to be prepared for the May or June ACT, or SAT, I'm sorry. So that's one of the reasons more folks are talking about taking this year until they work through those issues with the SAT. Another big change is what's called the Coalition. Our students this year are using the Common App, and the Common App is also linked with our Naviance program that we'll talk about in a little bit. But this year, about 80 colleges throughout the U.S. have decided to create a new application process and portfolio program for high school students. And it's important to know of the 80 schools, a lot of these schools represent some of our most select colleges. So you have Brown, Harvard, William and Mary, UVA, Northwestern. So there are a number of schools that have switched to, for next year, to the Coalition. So we're asking parents to really start reading up on the Coalition. They say that their tool will be a different tool and make the process easier and more accessible for students and parents. But what we're telling parents now is start to look at those things and start to be aware of what the changes are and which schools you're interested in, and if they're a coalition school or a Common App school, or if they have their own process for applications. The Common App is what our students are mostly using this year. Common App has between 300 and 400 colleges, I believe. And you can go on Common App. There's a link we have here, and we'll post this presentation after we're done today with the links. But the Common App has about 400 schools. Our students linked this year Naviance in the Common App, and that allows students and parents to see how the process is going, when things were submitted, and when they were received. But again, with about 80 to 100 schools leaving Common App this year, you want to make sure you know, is your school a Common App school, a coalition school, or do they have their own application process? So those things are going to be really important and different for this group of graduating seniors or current juniors going to be seniors. So we're going to talk a little bit about federal student aid and the changes in the federal student aid. The FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. And what's different about that is with the FAFSA this year, or with your group, with the class that will be starting college in 2017-18, the FAFSA can be submitted in October of 2016. This year, our current seniors have to wait until January 1st to submit their FAFSA. And that means that, you know, it's a little bit later, but their taxes are based on this, the FAFSA is based on this year's taxes. For the current juniors, their FAFSA information is going to be based on their 2015 income. So this is the year to kind of get your taxes right and know that this information is going to be what's used for your FAFSA. Certainly, if you have any changes in information, you always submit that to colleges with your financial information, but the FAFSA this year will be important for you folks. And so this means that you'll be able to complete your FAFSA anytime after October 1st, which will hopefully allow colleges to get financial information back to students in a faster capacity that will allow students and parents to make decisions a little bit sooner about these things. So we're hoping that that makes the process easier. Next month, we talk about with our seniors here about creating what's called a FAFSA ID, and that is your electronic signature. Both student and parents can do that. We just had our own webinar about 2 weeks ago on the new FAFSA and the changes. And parents, if this is your first time going through with a student, you could even go on now and create your FAFSA ID. You won't be able to submit the FAFSA till October 2016, but you can get your FAFSA ID at any time. So that's something, that process is also different. It now takes several days to get your FAFSA ID. It could take up to 3 days. Currently, in the old system, you could do your what's called FAFSA PIN, or now FAFSA ID, and you could get it pretty much instantly. So I know that process also takes a